Hola, ¿qué tal amigos? Buenos días, buenas tardes y buenas noches. No importa la hora que sea, siempre es un gran momento para aprender español con Profesor Pablo. Hola, ¿cómo están? Our lesson, Demonstrative Adjectives and Pronouns. You may remember over 100 lessons ago, I believe, we went over how to say this, that, these, and those. Let's take a review look and let's add some new things to it. Now keep in mind that our prior lesson, we learned how to say this and that in general, referring to something in general, not specific. We call them neuter pronouns. Esto is not masculine, it's not feminine, it's neuter, it has no gender. Eso, for that, same thing. So if you want to say this is fun, esto with an O, es divertido. That is fun, eso es divertido. Okay? However, if you want to say this, followed by a noun, referring to a noun, tied to a noun, it's este or esta. If you want to say this one, it's either este or esta. So let me show you something right off the bat here. Demonstrative means they point out. Demonstrative adjectives, they point out like which house? This house, pointing it out. Those books, you're pointing out. And demonstrative pronouns, let's say you have a bunch of books on the table and you say, I prefer this one, prefiero este. Demonstrative adjectives and demonstrative pronouns, they demonstrate, they point out, okay? Now, if you want to say this and or that, these or those, and follow it with a noun, there is no accent mark. Again, if you want to say this something or that something or these something or those something, there is no accent mark. But if you don't state the noun after this, that, these, or those, you have to have an accent mark. Why? Because este and esta mean this, but este and esta with the accent mark mean this one. Now when you speak, this doesn't have any bearing. But if you're writing Spanish or you are reading Spanish and you see one without or one with, then we want you to know what it means. If you see any of these without an accent mark, as you see in these top three clusters, then they mean this, that, these, or those. But if you see any of these with an accent mark, well, let's see what they mean. Este and esta don't mean this, they mean this one. There's no noun after it. Estos and estas mean these. Now, estos and estas means these here, but we follow it with a noun, like these books, estos libros, no accent mark. If I'm pointing to books and I say I like these, me gustan estos, if you write it out, there's an accent mark on that E. All of these accent marks are there. Why? Because they distinguish words identically spelled in meaning. They distinguish them in meaning because este means this one. Este here with a noun after it means this. Estos and estas mean these, and estos and estas mean these as well. A lot of people in English make the mistake of saying these ones or those ones. That's incorrect grammar. You may say it that way, your parents may say it that way, your priest may say it that way, right? Your pastor, your rabbi, whoever, someone may say it a certain way. But remember that you don't say these ones and those ones. It's incorrect. So again, all of these top three clusters are spelled the same as the bottom three clusters except for the accent mark. And the ones that have an accent mark, the bottom three clusters, are not followed by a noun. It's as simple as that. So let's look and see what we have. For that, it's either ese or esa. Let's stick with book and house. Ese libro, that book. Esa casa, that house. Ese, that one, referring to book. Esa, that one, referring to the house. Esos and esas both mean those. Esos and esas both mean those, but when you don't have a noun after it, you have to have the accent mark. When you have a noun after it, you will not have an accent mark. Now, what's the difference between ese and esa and aquel and aquella? They both mean that. Well, in distance, either in your memory or physical distance, it's much further away. For example, esta casa, this house. The one across the street, I would say esa casa, point to it. The one down at the end of the street, I would say aquella casa. Aquella means further away, distant, okay? So let's summarize. If you want to say this, that, these, or those, followed by a noun, there is no accent mark. If you want to say this, that, these, or those, or this one or that one, or these or those, there's going to be an accent mark because there's no noun that follows. But in speaking, it's a moot point because they all are pronounced identically. It's just that when you spell them or read them, if you read them, if you see any of these with an accent mark, you can bet your bottom dollar there is not a noun coming immediately after them. If you see any of these written in a book or on a sign, then they better have a noun right after them, because if they don't have a noun after them, they cease being a demonstrative adjective and they become a demonstrative pronoun, and they must have the accent mark. All right, let's see if we got this. Este and esta is this followed by a noun. Estos and estas, these followed by a noun. Este and esta mean this one, not followed by a noun. Estos and estas, yes, it means the same as these, but there's no noun following, and therefore you have to have an accent mark in written form. Ese and esa mean that, followed by a noun. Esos and esas mean those, followed by a noun. Notice they do not have an accent mark. If you want to say that one, it's either ese or esa with an accent mark if you write it out or read it. And if we want to say those, not followed by a noun, you have to have an accent mark on the E. Now speaking, it makes no difference. Ese and ese, esa and esa, they're all the same. But if you're going to write it and read it, then we want you to understand why some have an accent and some don't. And remember, aquel, aquella is the same as ese, esa in translation, that, but it's much farther away, much more distant, further away. Aquel, aquella, like that house way over there, aquella casa. Those kids way at the end of the playground, aquellos niños. Someone says, which kids? ¿Qué niños? And you say, esos niños? Estos niños or aquellos? It's a question of distance. Estos, these, esos, or aquellos. And down here we have aquel, aquella, aquellos, and aquellas with the accent mark because there is no noun used after them. So in speaking, it's all the same. Just know that this is este, esta. These are estos and estas. That is ese or esa. Those is esos or esas. That far away is aquel or aquella. Those far away, aquellos or aquellas. If you use these in written form and there is no noun immediately after them, you have to have an accent mark on them. And remember, este and esta mean this one. Este and esta just simply mean this followed by the noun. Estos and estas, they mean these plus the noun. Estos and estas without the noun mean these, not these ones. Try to break that habit. It's just these. I like these. I prefer these. Mom likes those. A mamá le gustan esos. With an accent. So if you want to say that, it's ese or esa. That one, ese or esa, but with an accent mark. If you're writing. Aquel libro, no accent. Aquel, referring to libro, in written form would have an accent on that. Aquella casa, no accent mark. If I want to say that one over there by itself with no noun, aquella would have an accent on the E. So it's a review lesson, it's maintenance, but also it's helping you understand, again, when you see these with an accent mark, it is because there is no noun immediately after them. If you see these without the accent mark, then they're going to be followed by a noun. And then always remember, the neuter, esto, and eso, they're not tied to any noun at all. They have no gender. They're not masculine, they're not feminine. Again, this is fun. Esto es divertido. This is easy. Esto es fácil. That is funny. Eso es chistoso. Okay, that's it. Gracias, amigos. Hasta la próxima lección. Tengan ustedes un super gran día. Gracias. Bye bye.